Have you ever whispered this question in the dark? If God loves me, why am I hurting? Why do the faithful struggle? Why do the kind-hearted face betrayal? Why do the righteous walk through storms they never asked for? If you have ever felt this way, you are not weak. You are human. And you are not alone. The truth is, suffering is one of the deepest mysteries of faith. In the book of John, 4:33 p.m. Jesus says, "In this world, you will have trouble. But take heart. I have overcome the world." Notice something powerful. He did not say you might have trouble. He said you will. Even the most faithful are not exempt from pain. Look at Job, described as righteous and blameless. Yet he lost everything. Look at Joseph, betrayed, sold, imprisoned, not because he was wicked, but because he was chosen. Look at Jesus, perfect, sinless, and yet he suffered beyond measure. So what is happening here? From a psychological perspective, suffering often becomes the furnace that shapes identity. It exposes what we rely on. It reveals hidden fears. It strips away illusions of control. Pain forces the soul to ask deeper questions. And sometimes, God allows discomfort not as punishment, but as preparation. Romans 5:3-4 tells us, "We also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope." Notice the progression. Suffering, perseverance, character, hope. Suffering is not the destination. It is the process. Psychologically, growth rarely happens in comfort. Muscles strengthen under resistance. Minds mature through challenge. Faith deepens in uncertainty. When everything is easy, you depend on ourselves. When everything is uncertain, we learn to depend on God. But here is the danger. If pain is misunderstood, it can lead to bitterness. If pain is processed with God, it leads to transformation. There are two people in every storm. One asks, "Why me?" The other asks, "What is this forming in me?" The difference determines the outcome. James 1:2-4 says, "Consider it pure joy, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance." This is not toxic positivity. This is spiritual maturity. You can acknowledge pain without losing faith. You can grieve without abandoning hope. You can cry and still trust. Sometimes suffering exposes wounds from childhood. Sometimes it reveals attachment patterns. Sometimes surfaces fears of abandonment. And here is the beautiful truth. God does not waste pain. The very area where you feel broken often becomes the place of your calling. The wound becomes wisdom. The struggle becomes strength. The trial becomes testimony. Think about this. If Joseph had never been betrayed, he would never have ruled. If Job had never suffered, his faith would not have been refined. If Christ had avoided the cross, there would be no resurrection. Your suffering is not evidence of God's absence. It may be evidence of His deeper work. You are not being destroyed. You are being developed. Right now, if you are walking through something heavy, a loss, a betrayal, a season of silence, pause. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is God building within me?" Transformation begins when perspective shifts. Your pain is not permanent. Your suffering is not meaningless. And your story is not finished. Isaiah 43:2 says, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned." Notice again, it says when, not if. But it also says, "I will be with you." And that changes everything. If this message spoke to your heart, I invite you to stay connected. Subscribe to this channel for more faith-filled teachings, healing reflections, sacred music, and transformational encouragement. Share this video with someone who is silently struggling. And today, instead of surrendering to despair, choose to surrender to growth. Your suffering is not the end. It is the soil where hope is being planted. And in time, you will rise stronger, deeper, and more radiant in faith.